course, the opportunity to test out new ideas, new technologies, and work
Good
them
morning,
into
everybody.
spacecraft. Butch and I are the first two
About
to
to see
fly the
Boeing
Starliner,
scrub
so this
yet
flight
again,
will be a crew flight test. So there'll only be
but
two on board.
hopefully,
We're
maybe
gonna
they'll get it
fly
off
up
the
to the
ground.
space station, dock it, and test it all out, and then come back home.
Everything's new. The procedures are new. We have procedures now that we didn't have a year ago because
I have
we've
not
learned
been
some processes
paying
going forward.
attention as
We've
much as I
had
generally
two
do
test flights
to what
uncrewed previously, but this will be the first time we're putting people on it.
We're test pilots.
to what kind of status they're at. So we'll learn. Everything seems to be going pretty well this morning. Liftoff is about 51 minutes away, and like I said, everything looks good so far. So we'll see what happens. This is Boeing Starliner, taking astronauts Butch and Suni to the International Space Station for the integrated flight test of the Boeing Starliner capsule. This was originally supposed to launch on May 6th. It has been heavy delays, multiple scrubs, and a lot of problems, mostly with valves and coolant and blah, blah, blah. Everything looked good on the public side. It did not sound that way. They had a lot of problems. They had some very critical pressure errors. And actually, I was talking to Brian, and yeah, I said this isn't going to go, and they held it all the way to the last couple minutes of count, but yeah, there was never any chance that one was getting off the ground a couple days ago. So would I be on this flight? Not a chance. Not a chance. I would like to fly. I'm not fearful of space flight, but not on this capsule. Now with all the problems, the first, I want to say 3 flight tests for this vehicle. No, it's 2. They did 2 uncrewed flight tests. The first 2 have been just massive failures. One failed to reach orbit successfully. The other one had a myriad of issues. There's not a chance I would be on this flight, so at all. Other things with this is not a reusable vehicle, so they're gonna dump this vehicle in the ocean if it ever gets off the pad. But no, there's not a chance that I would be on this vehicle. So, but I wish them the best. There's Tori. There must be a problem. Every time there's a problem, Tori comes on and says how great their program is.
This is the rocket from the pad and controls what happens to getting the
I don't blame you.
loose. And we have a triple redundant system that is also able to vote, and we lost one card within one of those 3 chassis that do this. Crew was never in any kind of danger or anything like that, but in our timeline, had that failed much later, we would have relied on the double redundancy and voting that remained, but that early on, our criteria says stop and understand what's happening. We did resolve it the next day on a Sunday. It is a card within a chassis that has power supplies. It was one of the 2 power supplies that are also redundant, and so the flaw was really that power supply going down and not switching to the backup supply built into the chassis. So we removed it, we replaced it, we put the modules right back in it. The chassis we're using we know works because it's the same chassis we used
about
to
45
launch
minutes.
Vulcan on Cert 1. Everything has checked out and been retested, and now we're good to go.
That's great to hear, and it is a beautiful day right now. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful launch. What's the trajectory like for this launch? I mean, who along the U.S. will be able to see it?
Yeah, this is a very unique trajectory because it's flat and long for crew safety. And so it'll head out from here, it'll go north and a little bit to the east. And so all along the southern coast of the United States, you have a pretty good chance of seeing it. And what that trajectory allows us to do is to have no blackout areas where the crew would be unable to abort the flight, God forbid, in the event of an anomaly. And it delivers them just short of being orbital. So if there were any issues with the capsule's propulsion system, they get a free return safely to the surface of the Earth. So very unique for us. We've never flown, apart from the test flights of this capsule, a trajectory that is suborbital before.
Wow. And, talking about uniqueness, is there anything new or different on this Atlas V rocket for this crewed launch compared to other uncrewed Atlas V launches?
Yes, there are. There's a handful of things, and they are all safety related. So the most obvious thing is there's no payload fairing, because if there were to be an abort where we want the capsule to fly the crew safely away, the fairing would be in the way. So we fly without it. We also have an emergency detection system, which is like a very high speed computer that is plugged into all the systems on Atlas and monitoring its health, so that if an anomaly started happening faster than any human could possibly do it, this computer would detect it and command the separation of the capsule. And of course, on Centaur, we have two RL-10s instead of one rocket engine for more thrust because of that long, flat trajectory. The last thing we do is actually kind of subtle and maybe a little bit trivial for most people, but we anodize the first stage of the booster to protect it from a thing called stress corrosion cracking. And just to be extra careful for the crew, we actually double the thickness of that anodization.
Wow, that is fascinating. Tori, thank you so much for joining us here today. Megan, D, Mike, back over to you.
And as we check out some pad team members there getting ready to leave.
So, sorry, I wanted to listen to Tori Bruno. Tori Bruno is the president and CEO of ULA, kind of the main dude. So it's interesting that he talks about a triple redundant system, because 2 hours into count on, what was it, 2 days ago, Saturday, 3 days ago, something like that, Saturday, Sunday, their last launch attempt, 2 hours into the count, they were already on their third redundancy system because the other two had failed. So it's good that they have three, because they needed all of them. But yeah, it's this thing has been a nightmare, an absolute nightmare, from start to finish. So I still hope for the best for Butch and Suni. I hope they get up safe. I hope they get home safe. But man, this is an interesting vehicle, that's for sure. We'll go back and join NASA, see what they have to say.
Starliner will then hold on to them for just a little more than a minute after that, and then jettison the boosters before second stage takes over and gets Starliner the rest of the way to orbit.
Starliner will actually reach orbit about 11 minutes and 58 seconds into flight, at which point the Centaur's main engines will cut off. Starliner and its crew hold on to that stage for a couple of minutes, and then separate from it at around 14 minutes 58 seconds into flight. From there, Butch and Suni will be free flying Starliner on their own.
During ascent, you'll hear Kutrick mentioning a number of abort-related milestones as Starliner moves past them. Starliner can safely abort all the way up to orbit, as you just heard in that interview we saw from Florida. That includes the East Coast, off the coast of Newfoundland, and off the coast of Ireland. Beyond that, it would just be able to safely abort to orbit. And of course, we're hoping not to need any of those options.
And the last major milestone before crew begins what we call orbit ops is the orbital insertion, or OI burn, which will move Starliner into slightly elliptical orbit as opposed to the more slightly suborbital trajectory that it starts off in after separating from the Centaur. From there, Starliner will be on its way to the International Space Station.
And speaking of the space station, let's check in with Rob Navius and the International Space Station Flight Control Team. Rob?
Go ahead. Thanks, Brandy. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, flight controllers are keeping tabs on the countdown and monitoring the work on board by the Expedition 71 crew in advance of Starliner's scheduled arrival tomorrow. After docking, NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Tracy Dyson along with Station Commander Oleg Kononenko of Roscosmos and fellow cosmonauts Nikolai Chub and Alexander Grabenkin, will be ready to roll out the red carpet as Wilmore and Williams float through the hatch into the Harmony module. Now, the dock timeline is designed to be variable. That means that the number of days Starliner could stay at the station could be adjusted depending on any further launch delays or undocking delays caused by weather conditions at the western U.S. landing sites for Starliner. One of the most important dock days for the Starliner crew will come 2 days prior to their scheduled undocking, when they load the last of the cargo items to be returned to Earth in the vehicle and conduct onboard manual piloting proficiency. That will enable them to stay sharp for their departure from the station and the deorbit and entry events that will follow. We're now 41 minutes, 9 seconds away from liftoff. Today, the operational loops are so far, thankfully, quiet. And with that, we'll go back to our folks at the Cape.
As we prepare in less than an hour to launch 2 astronauts to space, during this test flight, let's check back in with NASA's Antonia Jaramillo, who's with NASA's Associate Administrator, about the mission.
Thank you, Dee. Joining me is Jim Free, NASA's Associate Administrator. Jim, thank you so much for joining us. Can you discuss a little bit why it's important for the space agency that we have another American spacecraft launching to space from American soil?
Well, I mean, it is truly historic day that we have today. It is the 6th time we've launched a new vehicle to space, and this time with the first female on one of those missions in Suni, and from the Cape Canaveral Space Force.
I think so.
Station, not the Air Force
I don't really
Station
watch
any longer.
TV, so
And we're
my wife
also,
probably has it.
It gives us
but
that chance to get back to ISS with another crew, and the learning that we're doing there about the human body, about technology, about science. Of course, science is key to all we do, and then to prepare ourselves for those missions to the moon and then onto Mars.
Absolutely. A lot of firsts, a lot of important things for sure happening on this mission. You talked briefly on this. Can you discuss again why it's important just in general that we have multiple spacecraft available to send humans to space?
We need that access. So right now we have one provider giving us that access to space station. This will give us a second provider, which means if we have a problem with either, we have ways to get our crews to and from station, which helps keep the tempo that we've had for 23 years of having humans in low Earth orbit, but also that opportunity to get the crews back if there's an issue at all, and keep that presence going.
Absolutely. This has already been a very exciting year for the agency, with many, many fascinating missions already taking place. Now, with this historic launch about to take off, what else can the public look forward to?
It has been a great year, and certainly a lot of learning already for me about the incredible mission that we have at NASA. And the missions that we have remaining this year, I'll just highlight a couple of them. Europa Clipper, which will be an incredible mission for us to watch in its journey and understanding even more about the solar system. NISAR, which will help continue our learning of Earth. And then we have X-59, that first A in NASA, right? The aeronautics, which will go through its first flight this year. We're about to do an engine run up on that aircraft. And of course, heading towards Artemis 2 next year. The crews in Washington this week planted a moon tree just yesterday with our deputy administrator. And that gets us on our path back to the moon.
Absolutely, and we cannot wait for all of those missions. Jim, thank you so much for joining us here today. Megan, D, Mike, back over to you.
Thank you both. And we are now 38 minutes until liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test with Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. You can see they're inside the Starliner spacecraft, patiently, maybe awaiting liftoff, right, Mike?
Oh, they're very patient at this point, and so far so good today. It's been a very smooth count, as Rob Navius mentioned earlier.
And so the plan.
Oh, is that movie you were telling me about a while back, Roger?
A call out saying that the pad team has cleared the pad. Now, the plan is for Butch and Suni to be docked to the ISS for at least 8 days, and then after, they will return to Earth with a soft touchdown in the American Southwest.
Huh.
That's video and sound from
Hey, what's up,
Starliner
dude? Thank
during
you.
its return to Earth.
And
2
yeah, I
years
know it's
ago
been longer
as
than
part
that.
Of the orbital flight test 2.
The whole take Meat's channel down, kind of. Yeah. So what kind of manual are they reading in the ring binder? So everything has a corresponding code. So Boeing is very in the old-fashioned system where they still do it much like an aircraft checklist. So they're literally going through and checking off and listening to every single thing that that's been done. Going through all the paperwork and stuff for flight checks and all that good stuff. So they're required to go step by step and look at everything in that binder for kind of pre-launch checks. So much in the way that aircraft pilots do so. Hey, thanks, Jude, for the super. Appreciate it. Oh, you taking off? Have a good one. It's Boeing. It's Boeing.
In the southwest of the United States that we can land on.
And I remember Suni saying that she would much rather land on land because she said she had a lot of anxiety with landing in the water, even after you're back on Earth, because it's such a long rescue process and you're bobbing in the ocean. You know, she said when you land on land, it's done, you're safe.
See, that's the Air Force perspective. That's how we always think of things too. The Navy guys, they should like the water, but no, this is jokes aside. That's exactly it. It's a lot easier to find us and a lot more options if and when we land on land.
All right, so we're coming up on 35 minutes until liftoff.
And here comes a comm check.
Yeah, I want to set the stage now for a series of comm checks.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Op 60, step 10, step 20. Blast danger area is clear.
Roger.
So yeah, we expect to hear repeated communication checks with Capcom in Houston and the crew. This is an opportunity for them to also discuss any anomalies or resolutions to those anomalies. But we've been saying no issues, the team today. So that's great news. And then these comm checks that we'll hear now, we're going to periodically hear them throughout these final 34 minutes. And again, communication is so important, and we want to make sure that those channels are working properly from the crew to everybody else on the ground that's helping to monitor launch. And where we are now, again, the pad team has cleared the pad.
So it's just Butch, Suni, a Starliner, and Atlas.
No, it's not even
all together.
Yep.
It's not even like aesthetically pleasing. Like the Dragon is so futuristic. Not to fanboy on SpaceX, but the Dragon is so futuristic and it's so like there's contours to it. It looks like a future spacecraft. This just looks like they're like, we got to stick something up there, so let's just pop this on there. I had the opportunity in Huntsville to see the Boeing Starliner capsule, the one for the flight test, and it looks even worse in person. It looks even worse. I think I actually might have taken a video of it and posted it as a short at some point. I would assume I did. I don't know that for sure though. But it just looks choppy and very almost Russian. Say Russian. Very industrial, very choppy. So I don't know. I like rockets. They're fun. So, but it's very I don't know how to explain it, but it's very unfinished. It's I don't know. I hope there's a design improvement. It kind of seems almost like they slapped something together because they already had the funding and didn't really care what it turned out as. That's kind of where we're at. That's kind of exactly what happened. So, hopefully, again, my hope is that it works just beautifully and everything's great. I don't have the highest hopes for it, so it's just kind of big, bulky. It's not it doesn't have the aesthetics that some of the other vehicles have. Even if you get into like different non-SpaceX vehicles, there's a feeling to the kind of design considerations that are given to them, and it just wasn't there with the Starliner. So
13 years, what have I been up to? And that's been helping get Dragon and Starliner up into space, helping my friends aboard the International Space Station as Capcom. I helped Suni when she was doing spacewalks, and we help each other. It's all part of a big team. And so today it's great to see Butch and Suni. They've both been waiting a long time to go fly again. Trying to get a third mission or a fourth mission is really, you have to wait and be patient. And Butch and Suni are going to have they've been working hard on Starliner too. And that's what we do between missions. We help get ready for the next missions and help our friends be ready and support them while they're in space.
Yeah, and the commercial crew program is so important because in working with our commercial partners, it really allows NASA to pursue other things, like, again, returning to the moon. Our eyes are set on Mars with the Artemis program.
Indeed, and I'll just say I've enjoyed working both with SpaceX and really with Boeing. I mean, when we saw our teammates on the montage earlier, it just it made me tear up a little bit. I'm not afraid to say that because there's a lot of respect with the team.
And let's take another question now. This one is from World Citizen on YouTube asking, does the crew on the space station watch the launch?
So right now it's the middle of
L minus 30 minutes.
30 minutes to go.
RC, conduct weather briefing on Channel 8 Weather Conference Net.
Roger.
Arm controls, start arm hydraulic final preps. Roger. Locks 1, perform pogo suppressor charge.
Roger.
Prop 1, perform RD-180 transducer converter calibration.
Roger.
P&E 2, perform Centaur LH2 SVV cycle test. Roger.
That's all the communications between the launch team. Basically,
So what that means is that the fuel system's primed for launch. It means they're about to get another update on the weather briefing, which Space Weather Wing, it looks great to me. There's some upper level clouds that may come into play, but it might be too far enough out to not interrupt. And then I forgot what the third call out was, but basically those are just pre-launch checks. This is a lot further than we got on any of the other launches as far as communications and it seeming like it's on path for a launch. So that's a refreshing sign. So, but we'll continue to monitor. So.
Prop 1 go.
Are we complete?
Yes, RD-180 transducer converter calibration is complete and the engine FIV is open.
Roger. Flight control, start flight control final prep.
Roger. LC, P&E 2.
Go ahead.
Centaur LH2 SVV cycle tests are complete.
Roger.
again, Tracy Dyson, Jeanette Epps, two of the astronauts that are on the International Space Station already. We did get a chance to talk to them prior to launch.
Update complete.
And they
Roger.
said they are ready for Butch and Suni to arrive. They've gotten their areas all set up for them. So they're really excited to welcome them.
So we'll keep popping back and forth here. Let me try and turn this up just briefly. So this uses the upper level engine, the upper level, that stage just on this side of that metal ring. So that's a Centaur. That's a proven second stage, and it's been reliable and a good vehicle. So I'm just listening to the. So they use a weird combination of different fuels. So,
the first is Starliner's transition from ground power to battery power. That
RP1 and oxygen, which is rocket grade kerosene, and then they use H2OX or liquid hydrogen and oxygen for the first stage. So it's kind of a mismatch of fuels as well. So it's not just the external of the vehicle that looks like somebody threw it together in their basement. It's the fuel system as well.
Ordnance will be armed that activates the critical systems that are needed to detach all the things that Starliner would ultimately deploy or jettison as it climbs to orbit, or back for a landing if that became necessary. And then finally, just 1 minute and 15 seconds before launch, they'll work with the crew to activate the launch abort system, which would rocket the crew to safety in the case of an abort or on the path.
But good news, the hydrogen leak on the injection manifold is nominal. So, or helium leak, excuse me. So they've been fighting with that nonstop, and there's a helium leak. They lost over 1,000 psi on on Sunday, Saturday, whenever it was last. So it's been an issue.
Crew capsule that you see atop the Atlas V rocket.
Sub the PlayStation controller sub or the Wish.com PlayStation controller sub all day. All day.
Mike, Starliner is something, like you said, and Butch and Suni, you guys really have your fingerprints all over that to make it the space that you guys wanted.
Indeed, Starliner is definitely Ferguson even called it a astronaut or pilot spacecraft.
And so that next generation crew capsule,
there we go.
It measures 16.5 feet tall with a diameter of 15 feet. That's about the size of a mid-size SUV. It was designed to carry up to 7 astronauts or a mix of crew and cargo for missions to the International Space Station. After today's test flight, NASA will fly crews of 4 or 5 with cargo. Starliner is also reusable up to 10 times. I'm sure you're excited for your opportunity to fly in Starliner, Mike.
Oh, indeed. We're hopefully Butch and Suni, along with Calypso, are going to pave the way. We'll be in the other spacecraft that Boeing has. We have 2 capsules, and so again, it's always good to have an extra one and a backup one, and we're looking forward to flying next year.
Let's head back over to Johnson now, where we have Rob Navius with an update for us. Rob.
As we mentioned earlier, in the midst of Starliner arrival preparations on the station, NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Tracy Dyson, Jeanette Epps, and Mike Barrett are preparing spacesuits to be used for a trio of spacewalks scheduled to begin on June 13th. Other maintenance work is also planned for today by the expedition crew as they gear up for the docking of Starliner tomorrow to the forward port of the Harmony module. Once Starliner docks, it will be the 6th visiting vehicle at the International Space Station, a crowded house 260 miles above the Earth. We're standing by here in Mission Control for the Atlas V to take flight and for a new chapter in human spaceflight history to begin just 23 minutes from now. With that, we'll head back now to the Kennedy Space Center.
23 minutes, 9 seconds and counting until liftoff. So let's check back in with ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicky with the latest.
Minus 23 minutes.
Hey, Megan. Thanks for coming back to us here in the
SYS,
ASOC. We've
switch
been
all
monitoring.
secondary decoms to RF link and verify lock.
Roger.
Initiate orbital parameter calculations on primary CCLS.
Roger.
Monitoring those procedures here, and we're coming up on about L minus 22 minutes to launch. And around this time during the last launch attempt, our team worked through what you may have seen a suit pressurization issue. They worked very quickly around this time in the countdown to make sure that everything was going smoothly with this. But when we switched to internal power at L minus 18 minutes, that triggered a small voltage trip, and flight software correctly identified it and turned off the fans. So we quickly turned them back on, just like you would do with your computer, off and on. And today we're going to turn the fan off when we move over to internal power so it doesn't trip again. Then we will turn it back on after. The real difference is that crew will lower their visors about 5 minutes later this time. That action would usually be taken around now or a minute or so from now, and we will listen for that in just a few minutes. The Capcom will tell the crew to put their visors down at that time, and that is a configuration that is needed for proper airflow through their suit. In an emergency, they could pressurize their suits.
Go ahead.
Pogo suppressor charge is complete.
Roger.
LCSYS.
Go ahead.
All secondary. Secondary.
Yeah, you're breaking up, SYS.
All secondary decals verified on RF link.
I did copy that. Please check your headset.
All right, as I was saying, that in an emergency, they would be able to pressurize their suits quickly if needed. And it's a little different for them this time because, as we mentioned during this broadcast, their helmet is really more of a visor. It lays back like a hoodie on their shirt and they pull it forward and then just zip it up. And this config also calls for them to deflate their lumbar support and secure their restraints from launch. So once we get to that point, it's really buckle up. It's almost go time. And then the crews will report back when finished. And then while we're talking around L-19, we're also going to be looking for the Starliner readiness poll for terminal count. That will happen on a side channel. So I'll be listening for that and I'll let you know when we hear it. We do have a few polls coming up. That one is short. It will take place in the Boeing Mission Control Center, or BMCC, here in Florida. That is where the spacecraft launch conductor, Brian Gartner, will pull people in that room in charge of the propulsion system. Yeah, you see the room there on your screen.
Oh, minus 20 minutes.
PNE1, reinitiate AHB charging.
Roger.
RLM, verify redline monitor and event table are in the correct configuration for terminal count.
The lumbar support.
RC, verify solar radiation, acceptable for launch.
Verified.
Right, you might have heard, kind of came in faintly.
Starliner copies.
They asked them to go ahead and deflate their lumbar support. Wasn't sure if you're going to hear a little bit more about that. But again, there will be 3 calls coming up on this Starliner readiness poll for terminal count. They will pull the mission support room manager, or MSR. After launch, the BMCC turns into mission support as things shift over to Houston. They will also pull the spacecraft test conductor, who monitors our power systems.
Switch to channel 1. All personnel and visitors remain in present position until launch. Maintain operational silence in the LCC.
This is the LC with a terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds a launch constraint anytime after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold.
Okay, so they're going to status check for terminal count. So let me jump in. So what they were explaining there is that their system cannot take the switch of turning on the suit fan. So the fan that provides support systems to their suit tripped an alarm during their last flight attempt. So they have to turn off the comfort systems and the pressurization systems of a fan in their spacesuit because it trips the whole vehicle and shuts it down. Space is hard, rockets are hard, but damn.
Range hold fire system allows representatives from Space Launch Delta 45 a hold button in the up the road at the Morrell Operations Center. So if there's an issue or range safety issue that comes up, they can press a button and automatically stop our sequencer. So that's called a hold fire check. Those hold fire switches will be configured shortly, and we'll also start to hear calls about wrapping up our helium bottle charging on both the first and second stage.
And Dylan, as you mentioned, with the traffic on the loops increasing a little bit, you at home may notice that we are speaking less. And so we are going to be listening to some of these
Launch on
things
time verified.
as they happen live with
Roger.
and we feel it's important for you to be able to.
Go ahead.
AHB charging reestablished and at flight mass.
Roger.
L-minus 17 minutes.
OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch in the enable position.
SRB ignition enabled.
Verify FCO, RCO, and OSM hold fire switches are in the proceed position.
Ready to proceed.
All right, we're going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nail at Hangar 8. Daryl.
Thank you very much. And getting a final look at the weather, I could tell you this, it's a beautiful day to fly. Outside, our launch weather officer told us that there's no change in the forecast. We are 90% go, and what a beautiful shot of our beaches here from the courtesy of our.
And it's a 90% go. There's a 10% chance, like I said, of that cumulus cloud rule constraint, but that looks like it's going to hold at least for now. So there's a slight concern with the cumulus cloud. You can see some clouds rolling in behind Starliner, but we should be clear of the pad before that happens, hopefully. So.
Launch visibility is always a factor here in the Southeast. Can you see the rocket and from where? And our friends at United Launch Alliance provided us with this graphic so you can see about which point in the launch you would see the rocket. If you're within the first two inner circles, you should be able to see the solid rocket boosters jettison a minute after launch. Folks in the Orlando and Central Florida area will be able to see it about 90 seconds of flight, and then it'll come into view for much of the rest of the state after more than about 2 minutes, including Tampa on the west coast of Florida. The southeast corner of Georgia might be able to see the Atlas Centaur separation, which happens after 3 minutes of flight. Again, we're looking good here at the ASOC. Richard Jones polled his team, the NASA operations manager,
15 minutes.
and all of them are go.
LC flight, channel 1 and air to ground 1 are now merged, going to air to ground 1.
Roger.
We'll send it back to the host desk.
LC flight, air to ground 1, ready for contact with Starliner on channel 1.
Roger. Starliner, LC, com check on channel 1.
Those are comm checks again.
LC, Starliner, loud and clear.
I have you loud and clear also.
And our astronauts, who you see there. Again, this is the test
Starliner,
flight.
Houston, com check, air to ground 1.
Houston, Starliner, loud and clear.
Houston has you loud and clear on air to ground 1.
Looks like they lifted the 4-minute hold. Since it's instantaneous, there's
Test
not much
flight,
reason
and
for
Boeing
it.
is working towards certification. To do that, there are a total of 87 flight test objectives and many more operational capability checkouts. So take a look at some of the main objectives with the crew on board. I'll go through a couple of them here. So they will demonstrate the performance of crew-related equipment. The crew will perform hatch operations and transfer emergency equipment. They will also evaluate the vehicle and transfer cargo while in a docked configuration. They'll conform functionality of manual piloting and deorbit with a successful separation of the crew module from the service module. And finally, they will demonstrate Starliner's entry and descent. 13 minutes and 24 seconds from only the 6th time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. And if you're curious about the previous 5 flights, we have you covered. Check out our video here. Mercury Redstone 3 was the first test flight. Alan Shepard, May 5th, 1961.
Gemini 3 with astronauts Gus Grissom and John Young launched March 23rd, 1965.
Apollo 7, October 11th, 1968, with Wally Schirra, Don Isley, and Walt Cunningham.
STS-1 launched with astronauts John Young and Robert Crippen, and it launched April 12th, 1981.
Starliner, Houston, your suit fan Bravo is repowered. It looks good. Please close your visors. Column closed.
You saw video there of Demo 2, May 2020, Doug Hurley, Bob Benkin.
And then, of course, today's NASA's and Boeing's crew flight test with Butch Williams and Butch Wilmore, and Sunny Williams.
You know, Mike, 12 minutes and 15 seconds to go. How are you feeling?
I am excited. I'm grateful to ULA and Boeing and NASA team that we are sharing this historic moment together. Go Starliner.
Yeah, our hearts and well wishes are with Butch and Suni as they make history testing what is poised to be the second commercial crew vehicle that is certified to ferry people to and from the International Space Station. So with 11 minutes and 46 seconds to go, let's send it back over to ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennicke to walk us through the final moments of today's launch countdown. Let's do it, guys.
Let's do it, Megan. We just heard the Starliner readiness poll is a go. We know the crew's visors are down now, so we are moving along smoothly into the final 11 minutes and 30 seconds of this countdown. This is an instantaneous launch window today, which means that we will launch when the orbital path for the ISS aligns with the Space Coast. Once we get into orbit, Starliner will be working to catch up with the space station, eventually reaching speeds of more than 17,500 miles per hour. It'll take about 25 hours or so to get there. And we are going to be watching here any minute
minus 11 minutes.
For the crew access
arm. Control, so the crew access arm for launch. Roger.
Right on cue. Crew access arm about to start moving away from the spacecraft. And Dylan, we will watch it move very slowly today, but it could move much faster if needed.
That's right, Lauren. It takes about 2 minutes to rotate the 120 degrees back away from Starliner to its stowed position and latched position on the crew access tower. Here we go. But we could, in the event of an emergency, redeploy it in less than 15 seconds.
It's amazing that it can do that. We hope to not have to ever see that happen. After liftoff today, Brandy and Jim will continue commentary from Houston through ascent, spacecraft separation, and the orbital insertion burn. We will have the shot of Butch and Suni inside Starliner until the moment of launch, and then we will get it again when we get to the ISS.
minus 10 minutes. Flight verify CST 100 on internal power. Verified. Starliner, configure ordnance for launch.
I'm not going to put that out in the universe. Sorry, buddy. I'm already concerned for
the spacecraft is running completely on its own now.
Responsible.
And they are configuring ordnance for launch. That means the devices that initiate our separation events are ready to support both nominal and contingency operations.
Let me turn it
that
down
happen or could happen during descent.
So one of the positives is we haven't had either. They're keeping that. I think they're keeping it out of the public consciousness, but we haven't heard as many of the issues on the public facing side. So that's so the real test will be this go no go poll that's coming up. They've had a lot of time to fix it. They've had over a month to engineer and fix issues with the vehicle. We would hope that they're ready to go, but who knows? We'll have a couple critical moments while the go no go poll that we'll pay attention to. And then after that, we go into terminal count at T-4. Once it reaches terminal count, if there is any hold or issue, then the vehicle will not launch. It will stop itself from launching, much like it did a couple days ago. So, but everything's looking much more positive than it has at any previous launch attempt. So that's probably a plus for launch today. So
8 minutes before Butch and Suni head back to a place they consider home. Both of them have spent 2 different stints of about 6 months.
And just for the record, tomorrow, IFT-4 from Starbase Texas, 8 a.m. is the launch window. 8 a.m. Eastern is when the launch window starts from Starbase Texas in Boca. They will be doing the Starship Integrated Flight Test 4. So we'll listen into their poll.
All steps are complete prior to status check.
Let's
Got
listen
it.
in to Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo conduct that final terminal count status check as we prepare for launch.
L minus 7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion,
Go.
hydraulics,
It is
Go.
the same.
pneumatics,
Yes.
Go.
LO2,
Go.
water,
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
LH2,
Go.
has gas,
Go.
East,
electrical
northeast.
systems,
Yep.
airborne,
Go.
ground,
Go.
facility,
Go.
RFFTS,
Go.
flight control,
Go.
GCQ,
Go.
op support,
Go.
comm,
Go.
umbilicals,
Go.
arm control,
Go.
ECS,
Go.
redline monitor,
Go.
quality,
Go.
op safety manager,
Go.
ULA safety officer,
Go.
vehicle system engineer,
Go.
anomaly chief,
Go.
range coordinator,
Clear to proceed.
flight director,
Houston flight is go.
Starliner,
Starliner, go.
launch director,
You have permission to launch.
proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 14:52:15 Zulu.
Verified.
All systems go for an on-time departure.
Starliner, net is clear.
You're assuming Starship's going to be non-retrieving. Yes, they're going to dump
Thank
it.
you, LC. For everybody listening, just a thought. Sonny and I, as we were traveling to the pad, we saw many American flags, and many of you were waving flags at us. And then as we reached the pad, we look up, and of course there's that American flag on the side of the white room, also one on the side of the rocket itself. And we know that that represents unity and resilience and unified efforts for the common good. And that's what Sonny and I have witnessed this last month. Each of you displaying what this nation's forefathers envisioned, a people committed to God, family, and country, a people who use their gifts and talents for the common good, and are passionate and tough. And we all know that when the going gets tough, and it often does, the tough get going. And you have. And Sonny and I are honored to share this dream of spaceflight with each and every one of you. So with that, LC, let's get going. Now let's put some fire in this rocket, and let's push it to the heavens where all these tough Americans have prepared it to be.
Let's go, Calypso. Take us to space and back.
Yes, this is Butch and Suni, same crew. They've been in the capsule for about 100 minutes. So about 2 minutes, 1 hour and 40 minutes is when they close the door. So they've been sitting in there chilling for over an hour.
Just beautiful words from Butch there. No better example of unity on this planet than what happens at the International Space Station, where Butch and Suni are headed in just 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
So we're into terminal count. If there's any issues, any holds, it would scrub the launch. But we're inside the
Atlas
3 minutes and
boosters,
50
hydraulics, tank
seconds.
systems now pressurized for launch.
So another pressurizing flight tanks, all that good stuff. Getting ready for so the computer's in control of everything now. So
Starliner's LAS prop valves are configured for launch. The propulsion valves that need to be open in the case of an abort from the pad.
3 minutes.
2 minus 3 minutes.
Pressurizing Atlas tanks. Securing LO2 topping.
250. FTS internal.
So they do have a flight termination system and a carryaway for the capsule if something goes critically wrong. There are some thrusters that pull the capsule away from the vehicle, and the vehicle would explode.
Flight software is in ascent mode. It is now
would
set
not
for the
be
uphill climb.
A fun ride for the astronauts, but they would likely survive it. So there is no difference between Starliner and a max 8 or 9. Just hope the door doesn't fall off. That'd be a critical error. T-minus 2 minutes. We're
159.
still in terminal.
Vehicle internal. 155. Launch sequencer start.
So Starliner is controlling the count, controlling the launch sequence.
Securing Centaur LO2.
Vehicle is now transferred to its onboard batteries, and topping is
140.
completed.
Launch enabled. 137. FTS armed.
Flight termination system is armed. About 90 seconds.
120. OCU's armed. SCS count started. EDS ascent. Starliner, last arm to auto.
Last arm auto.
Roger.
That call meaning if the emergency detection system on Atlas detects something.
Block report range status. Range green.
Range is green. That means it's
54.
clear.
POP started.
Weather's green. Vehicle is configured.
It will trigger the
we're
launch
gonna get a
abort
flight.
system on Starliner and fire automatically. If that happened, the spacecraft would push itself away from the rocket a mile up and a mile out.
Atlas at flight press.
T-minus 30 seconds. Go Boeing. Go Starliner. Go
Centaur
ULA.
at flight press.
Safe travels, Suni and Butch.
25. Status check. Go Atlas. Go Centaur. Go Starliner. Godspeed, Butch and Sunny.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V, carrying 2 American heroes, drawing a line to the stars for all of us.
Damn, that thing jumped off that pad.
Commander Butch Wilmore, they're calling down to Mission Control here in Houston that the spacecraft has begun rolling into the right attitude for its ascent. And the guidance, navigation, and control officer here in the room seeing good data on that.
Starliner passing through max Q, or the point of maximum dynamic pressure where the forces of air friction are highest, which in Sunny will shortly be passing through Mach 1, where the speed of sound.
You got a good throttle up.
Starliner and Atlas. Looking good with speeds and attitude increasing as expected. Coming up in less than 20 seconds, the solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn out.
Good SRB burnout.
So the solid boosters are burnt out. They'll drop them in just a moment.
Now that the fuel in the solid rocket boosters has been depleted, the Atlas main booster stage will be continuing its burn for about the next 3 minutes.
Good handle.
Good handle.
That call, good handle from Capcom Joshua Kutrick, indicating that the crew now has the ability to initiate an abort manually if needed. All looking good so far. Now 2 minutes into Starliner's flight and coming up on the solid rocket booster jettison at the 2 minute and 40-second mark.
So you saw him drop the solid booster early. If it was supposed to be 240, they dropped it about 220. Weird trajectory. SpaceX has the performance to be able to
CLT and net, good trajectory.
to encounter more atmosphere and more
CLT.
more forces for a
Solid rocket
longer
boosters have now been
time.
jettisoned after seeing Starliner through its first 90 seconds of flight. Team on the ground here confirming that it was a good jettison and that the vehicle's trajectory continues to look good. Now 3 minutes into today's flight.
So we should get about another minute of burn time out of the first stage. I would imagine. As you can clearly see, the plume of that is very wide. So those sea level engines are not at peak performance right now.
Atlas booster now throttling back to limit the G-forces on Butch and Suni, trying to limit that to around 3.5 times the force of gravity you would feel while on the ground.
Something else, and I could immediately see the rocket over the house. Yeah, yeah, they go east northeast, which is more of a traditional NASA type launch, whereas SpaceX goes almost straight east, or has been. There we have good stage separation, and we can see those upper level Centaurs. Those are vacuum optimized engines.
Staging.
Here in the ground.
Decals open. You have sublimator rack.
Decal subac. Decal. Great Atlas.
Team on the ground reporting that they saw the ascent cover on top of Starliner that's been protecting the spacecraft's docking system through its climb into orbit. They saw that jettison as planned.
Staging was good. You have good control.
And now the second stage's 2 Centaur engines have ignited to continue pushing Starliner into space, fueled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. The next milestone that we'll be watching for is the aeroskirt jettison.
So a lot of complexity. They have that shielding mechanism, the aeroskirt on the capsule. Like, there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong. Big fan of
Starliner, yeah, good booster performance. You're up to plus 31.
That was the
Plus
jettison,
31.
Brian, of the protector for the docking port on
Atlas control reporting
Starliner.
booster performance offset of 31 seconds of ISP, or specific impulse, relative to its design baseline of around 450.
So that's that big metal. You can see from the animation there. That's that big. It almost looks like a corrugated housing, and that protects all the internals from the vehicle on ascent, on flight. So they'll also jettison that next portion of it here pretty soon. That's the Lego.
All continuing
where's
to
the
perform
pieces?
well, almost 7 minutes into today's flight.
Just so you have some kind of indication of where we're at. So this capsule,
Good center.
this capsule, and this
Capcom Joshua Kutrick continuing to pass good news up to Starliner's crew. At last one reporting that the Centaur upper stage remains in good condition and is performing well, pushing them into orbit.
So you guys have all seen SpaceX's Dragon on a Falcon 9 takeoff. Beautiful sight. So SpaceX in total funding from the United States government to complete a crewed mission flight
St. John's open.
and certify
St. John's.
received $2.6 billion.
Starliner is
Billion with
now
a B.
entering its first guided abort range, where Starliner would direct itself towards a specific location in the event of abort. In this case, just off the coast of St. John's, the capital of the Canadian province of Newfoundland Labrador.
Boeing, the original contract was $4.6 billion, and there were overruns and obviously recertifications. So that number is probably pretty close to double, realistically. So for 4 times the price, you get this over the completely reusable Dragon SpaceX. Money well spent, if you ask me.
Starliner MECO converged 11:5 to 11:52. Good perf. You're at 34 to 36 seconds.
11:52. 34 seconds.
Back all letting the crew know that the main engine cutoff, MECO, should happen just about on time, about 12 minutes into today's flight. Another good indication that Starliner's ascent is taking along exactly as expected. Main engine cutoff is a major milestone marking Starliner's arrival on orbit. Still got about 2.5 minutes until we get to that, with the spacecraft continuing to perform well, make its way towards orbit.
No action, Starliner on the LCL. That's just the system coming up into controlling mode.
So their
Outstanding.
perigee,
No action.
it's because of their flight trajectory, and I honestly haven't studied it. So I don't.
Once the main engine is cut off, the next step will be the launch vehicle separation. That's set to occur just short of 15 minutes after launch, when Starliner will separate from the rocket and fly free in space for the first time.
So I don't specifically know. So could be nominal, but so your perigee altitude, which is your highest point of your orbit, it's at about 2,200 kilometers. So they're actually coming back towards Earth at this point. Their inclination's back towards Earth because they're
Flight dynamics officer reporting that at this point, Starliner could potentially make an abort landing off the coast of Ireland.
they're actually pulling it back down, which is it's normal. To
And they're
circlite 'cause-
again all continuing well, so we're not expecting to need that abort.
but you're at it's coming down pretty
As
rapidly.
Starliner is
So
rapidly approaching orbital velocity, the support region is only available for just over 1 minute, where Starliner would just continue up to orbit after that.
but we're also seeing that apogee, which is the shallower part of the orbit, essentially this side of the orbit, the closer. That's coming down too. We're at 144, so that's dropping as well. Seems inefficient. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't looked at their flight profile, but they went up to almost 170 kilometers of apogee, and then they're coming back down, which is a lot of wasted energy.
30 seconds to MECO.
Just 30 seconds to go. Now until main engine cutoff, marking Starliner's arrival on orbit.
I remember, but I forgot. It's I think it's a Loch Ness monster, like a Loch Ness dude, but I'm not sure. See, their telemetry can't be right because now they just dropped to minus altitude on the perigee, and their app is rising again. So you're gonna go into flight and then you burn to circularize, but
Nominal MECO Starliner.
that app and perigee didn't.
Nominal MECO.
It doesn't seem right, but I don't know if it's their data or what. So.
And with that nominal MECO call, that's main engine cutoff. We've got good energy, meaning a good velocity for continuing to orbit, and a good plane, meaning Starliner's trajectory is aligned with the International Space Station for rendezvous tomorrow.
And with that, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams returned to orbit. Individually, they are both extremely experienced astronauts.
14:5 to 14:52.
1452.
They're both very experienced astronauts with a combined total of 489 days in space between them. Starliner is also the third spacecraft that they've launched in. Both have traveled to the International Space Station via space shuttles and Soyuz and are now well on their way to repeating the journey via Starliner. It's also worth noting that Williams' role as pilot marks the first time that a woman has crewed a flight test of an orbital spacecraft.
I agree.
Just a few seconds ago, you heard Capcom Joshua Kutrick calling up to Butch and Suni. With the expected time, Starliner will separate from Centaur at about 14 minutes, 52 seconds into flight, just under 2 minutes from now, or 1 minute from now.
It's kind of a weird orbit. I'm going to have to study that because
That is actually the last major milestone for Starliner's ascent. All the hard work is done, but we need for Starliner to be flying on its own before it can begin heading towards the International Space Station. There's a slight pause in the action here while Centaur repressurizes and does some attitude control. We'll get into the right orientation to send Centaur on its way and then jettison it and move into the right orientation for the orbital insertion burn, which will come about 31 minutes into flight.
Oh, they're going to burn it 31 minutes? Damn. Okay.
No action on the cabin temp Starliner.
No action.
That was just a weird sequence. I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to look at it because I don't know it. But that was an odd sequence.
And about 10 seconds until an expected launch vehicle separation.
Especially since they've had significant issue with orbital insertion and getting correct apogees prior. Now, you can see they have a couple little small engines on the bottom of that spacecraft. You're in space now, so it's much easier to...
LV-SEP confirmed.
Damn, they are playing Kerbal right now. They aren't even fucking around. They're playing Kerbal.
And now that Starliner has separated from this Centaur upper stage, we have a big thank you to our partners at ULA, providing Butch and Suni a smooth ride to space.
That is not the end of today's orbit activity, though. The team will now be getting ready for the orbital insertion burn, which comes 31 minutes after flight. So that's still about 15 minutes away now.
This is Kerbal.
Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore will be getting their tablets out and doing a few other activities to get Starliner ready for that. And that will be that will be the first in a series of burns that will set Starliner on its way to the International Space Station.
And I'm moving stuff around. I know it's... They're not as friendly as Friendly Skies of the SpaceX.
Once again, Starliner with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams on board launched from Florida, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Launch Pad 41 at 9:52 a.m. Central, 10:52 a.m. Eastern today, and they have now made it into
your
orbit.
nominal TDRA show MDL is active. You have good targeting for OI.
Good targeting.
With the call for good targeting and information about Starliner's TDRS schedule being good, means that we've got good communication with the ground. TDRS is the tracking relay data satellites that Starliner uses to talk to the ground, and the flight controllers on the ground are seeing the dynamic.
Go ahead.
Don't doubt that, Stinch.
Yeah, if you could relay a message to our brethren at ULA.
We're all listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, they've been a member of the family for a long time, but now it's official, and we want to welcome them to human spaceflight.
We all copy all and really appreciate the words.
And Houston Starliner, we are on the tablets and in insertion monitor.
Copy tablets, we're with you, insertion monitor.
So the crew have their tablets out, so no longer using the paper procedures now that the vehicle has stopped moving so quickly. So there's a handful of things that the crew's going to do now, mostly just prepare the inside of the cockpit so they are looking at the right data to prepare for the upcoming orbital insertion burn. The vehicle itself.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to switch over and then we'll come right back. I promise. Tell me that's not what the Boeing animation looks like. It's Kerbal. Boeing uses Kerbal. All right, I'll go back.
And Houston Starliner, last arm is off. Backup control switches, enable 1 on, enable 2 off. SMRCS is the mode.
We copy off. Enable 1 is on, enable 2 is off. SMRCS, you're in a good config.
Good config.
Probably forbidden because they just eliminated that too.
Your EXDV targets are on board and good.
It is fine. Just mod 1.
Good EXDV.
That's what I did. Animation reminds me of dial-up internet. Yeah, pretty close.
Things will be pretty quiet as Starliner gets into position for the orbital insertion burn. That's still about 10 minutes away. Starliner is actually designed to be pretty autonomous and, in fact, docked with the space station on its last trip around without the help of any crew on board. But we do still want to know that if needed, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams could take control and manually abort the spacecraft's approach to the station if they needed to. So to prove that, one of the few things on their agenda after they reach orbit will be to perform a test of the manual piloting mode.
This test will involve first pointing Starliner's nose towards the Earth so that its communication antenna on the back of the service module is pointed at the satellites, the teeter satellites that allow it to communicate with the team on the ground. They'll then move Starliner so that its solar arrays are pointed at the sun, showing they can charge Starliner's internal batteries as needed. And they'll follow that up with a demonstration of the star trackers, one of the ways that Starliner determines where it is in space, pointing Starliner away from Earth so that the system, the Vesta system, can get a good look at the stars.
Next step will be for the crew to manually speed Starliner up and then slow back down, which will slightly raise and then lower their orbit and prove that they can manually break away from the orbit that the space station is in if they needed to. At that point, they can move on to the last
Starliner,
items of the
still no
test.
action on your cabin temp. You're in a good config. It's 74 degrees in there. Yeah, and that's just due to that T2 sensor sitting beside the light. So we're actually going to inhibit that particular sensor. We'll let you know when we bring it back online.
Okay, great. Looks like we're on our way to thrust line.
Concur.
Yeah, we'll just make it unoperational.
Josh Kutrick calling up that the crew can ignore some alarms they're seeing on the temperatures inside Starliner. That's just a result of one of the sensors being next to a light that's causing it to show higher than it actually is. But it sounds like the crew are pretty comfortable and are getting into place for that orbital insertion. As I was saying, after they have manually broken away from the orbit of, proven that they can manually break away from the orbit of the space station, they are going to move on to the last items of their test for tonight. That's manually moving Starliner into the right orientation for re-entering the atmosphere, and then moving back into the attitude that will let them soak up some sun with the solar arrays and try a different method of manually charging the spacecraft's batteries. But again, once that all has to wait until after the orbital insertion burn. This is again the first of several burns that will put Starliner on its way to the International Space Station. We've still got about 6.5 minutes until we fire up the engines for that burn.
Starliner, we did not see the hand controller deflection. Just wanted to know if you did that yet.
No, we'll get it now.
All good.
No worries. That's my point. Like, how did that get by? Gotta love Boeing. I don't think we're gonna get any like image or video for the actual insertion. It's just fun, just a different way of doing things.
Go ahead. USO establish barricades around MLP in an area beneath the MLP and perform O2 LEL checks for Compass 41 areas. Roger. ECS LC.
Buzzing is insufferable.
Team here on the ground seeing that everything is looking like it's in the right configuration for the orbital insertion burn. Now less than 5 minutes away. Starliner is currently about 102 miles above the Mediterranean Sea, heading southeast over India in the next few minutes.
Starliner, good config for the OI burn.
Good config for OI.
And good config from the OI burn. Crew and ground controllers noting that Starliner is pointed in the direction it needs to for the OI burn. It should also be about the time that the crew are using their tablets for their procedures, also charging them, keeping them topped up for the rest of the rendezvous.
We unfortunately won't have a view of Williams and Wilmore as they work through this procedure. Although we had a view of them from inside the cabin on the ground, Starliner isn't able to send that view to us again until it gets to the International Space Station. So you'll be seeing this screen quite a bit as
so
it was
they're not gonna
getting,
show
as Starliner was
anything.
getting into the right position for the burn. And actually, just now, you can see some of the engines firing that help it steer and move around in space. And you can also see what attitude it's in at any given time. Lots of good information on the screen.
It is. A lot of this information actually directly mimics the views that the crew is seeing, especially the one in the upper left-hand panel. That is an exact copy of the display the crew is using for their attitude directional indicator. It also covers what mode their translational hand controller and the translational pointing is in. On the left side, on the right side, the pointing guidance, which tells the Starliner in automated mode which direction to point, or when in manual mode, which direction the crew needs to move the vehicle, like we're going to do in some of the manual piloting maneuvers. And following back up a little bit on the camera conversation, there is a planned upgrade of the Mustang system that we should see on our PCM-1 mission, and that will include live feeds from inside the cockpit.
And the Mustang system is the cameras that we were seeing views from earlier.
That's correct. There's a handful of cameras around the inside of Starliner.
So with that, since they're not going to show us anything else, I was going to hang around for another like 5 minutes, but it looks and appears that everything went nominally. I have a hard cutoff because I have a meeting at 11:30, so need to head over to that. But yeah, congratulations to Boeing. As everybody knows, we're not best of friends. Like, they're not my preferred provider. However, I'm always very happy to see that the astronauts made it safely, and everything went as nominal as it could. So thank you, Boeing, for a great flight. I'll keep an eye on it, and if anything crazy happens, I will certainly let everyone know. We'll probably 25 hours, so we'll probably get some docking after the IFT-4 test for SpaceX tomorrow morning. That starts at 8 a.m. But yeah, so thanks as always for watching, and good job, Boeing. Good job, Butch and Suni. Welcome to space, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care, y'all.